Ball. Yes. It's 2:32. I got here about 12 minutes ago. Yeah. For some reason, my phone didn't stay on. I sent some emails today. Yeah. About my right to a speedy trial. Yeah. And how the public defender's office didn't protect that right. And then they wouldn't admit the evidence that I wasn't in Sequim, Washington. Yeah. And using a protective order to hold my sons hostage is abuse of process. Not my responsibility to motion a court that abuses the process of protection orders. I was not served 4 years ago in 10 months. Now that's from that day. Um, why was my right to speedy trial not explained to me? And why was it that no one would investigate those involved in issuing of protective orders where there's no petitioner? The respondent wasn't served and it was issued for 10 years. Now, I did a search. Yes. You can see from the screen print on December 31st, right? Well, I actually am. Yeah. The Police Cooperation Article 87. Did you know that I'm owed victims' compensation from all the member nations of Interpol, Europol, and international policing services? Yeah. I included one of these. Well, every nation's going to pay me victims' resources. See, in that email, there's a little document. There's two copies of it, but it's titled different. Yeah. Not only am I owed victims' resources from each and every state of the United States, I actually did contact Interpol and Europol and the South American Pol. Yes. And constitutional courts throughout the world about the United States' refusal to enforce the actual civil rights of citizens. Oh. Now, if you look at 4.pdf, yes, just save that on your computer. You know, the member nations that belong to the international conventions, treaties, and agreements of international policing organizations. Why don't you give me the employees of Interpol, Europol, yes, and those in the South American Pol, yeah. Now, I had made mention that when you deprived me of my right to a speedy trial, right, you arrested me for a crime where I wasn't in Sequim, Washington, yes. And then I told the judge that I was not given any notice or opportunity to be heard, yes. And then my public defender on Guam, they had issued a no contact order when Heidi had me arrested, yes. It was actually against the law for you to issue a protection order in 2011. Now, this is Council Directive 200480EC, yes, relating to compensation to crime victims. The Council of the European Union, yes, Now, I did read this quite a few years ago, but one of the objections of the European community is to abolish, as between member states, obstacles to the free movement of person and services. The Brussels European Council, yes. On March 2001, the Council adopted a framework decision. Victims of standing of victims in criminal proceedings, yes. Decision based on Title Number 6 of the Treaty of the European Union, yeah. Allows crime victims to claim compensation from the offender in the course of criminal proceedings. You remember when we emailed the European Union and I emailed them thousands of times? Yes. Well, I got the directory of all the employees of the European Union, and when I found out that the FBI in the United States doesn't enforce the civil rights of American citizens, and they don't enforce kidnapping laws, they don't enforce corruption laws, they don't enforce white-collar crime. The Federal Bureau of Investigation seems to have a difficult time understanding the requirements of the United States. Well, they belong to an international community of policing organizations known as the Interpol, Europol, and the European Pol. Now, why don't you get me all of those in law enforcement and Interpol? Yes. For the last 40 years, I'd like to know where their personal assets are. Because I will sue every employee of Europol, Interpol. No, you think it's a fucking joke. It's not. Because I tell you right now, it seemed that the Federal Bureau of Investigation didn't want to answer a contact form from an American citizen at the Port Angeles Library at approximately 12:30 p.m.